name sounds.
Raichle.
Hi. Hi, welcome to Looking Through the Glass. Another beautiful day. Of course, Sela, Giselle, and today we have Marilyn Raichle. Correct? Yes.
Yes.
I heard you at the last minute. I was like, what was it? I don't remember this. Welcome to our non-editing and our goofiness. Marilyn, thank you for coming on today. We have a very special episode with you today, and we're going to talk about dementia and a different way and a different approach and how it has changed your life, correct?
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and just jump right into that. You were talking about a foundation, and I said, let's hit record, a foundation that you work with. You want to go ahead and we'll just start there?
Yeah, sure. Want me to
Okay.
tell you about it? So right now, it's called the I'm Still Here Foundation. And the I'm Still Here Foundation was founded by John Seisel, who wrote the first big breakthrough book about living with dementia. And who understands whose whole purpose with the foundation is to change the narrative from despair to hope. And so every year they award innovation grants for organizations all over the country who are doing really interesting things that can enrich the lives of people living with dementia, and with an eye to what are the programs that could be replicated all over the country for people who are eager to enhance their loved ones' lives. So it's a really rewarding program, and I'm really lucky because John Zeisel really helped me with my book. He read it one day and then he said, well, kept giving me advice, and then after a couple of years, he said, well, I guess you could consider me your editor. I said, well, thank you, John. And so anyway, it's the whole experience with Mom and everything that's come through that, which is Maud's Awards and now the I'm Still Here Foundation. All of this has just been so good, so wonderful. It's just been a privilege to work with Maud's Awards, of course, but also with the I'm Still Here Foundation. So if you're interested, go to the I'm Still Here Foundation.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we'll make sure we'll put those in there, and in our show footnotes. All right. So let's take it from the beginning when we were in our 15-minute when you were telling us about how you came about to be a caretaker for somebody or multiple people with dementia.
Yes, and so I was raised in a family that regarded dementia as like a death, actually kind of worse than death. And Mother told us her 5 kids, she said, from the time we were young, she said, when we get Alzheimer's, I want you to walk away. We're not going to remember you, there's nothing you can do, so walk away. And we thought, okay, they're both Mom and Dad were living in a really good continuing care facility, so we, sadly, to my regret, sort of left Mom's care to Dad, who was also developing Parkinson's. So that went on for a long time. We just sort of ignored it and pretended that it wasn't there. That was sort of how we dealt with most things. We pretended it wasn't there. And
I think a lot of us do that.
yeah, I mean, I think Mother was a great baker. I mean, she could whip up an apple pie like a heartbeat. And one day she called me up and she was having trouble making an apple pie, and she put vanilla pudding mix in the apple pie, and that's the first time we went, oh,
Uh-oh.
oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't
Yeah.
expecting it with Mom, because in Dad's family, most of his older brothers and sisters developed it in their 80s. Mom, we didn't expect it because only a few of her mother developed dementia, but very few. So, and I didn't want to be. We were raised literally to walk away. So when I went to graduate school, I came back. This was like 2008. There were no jobs. It was during the recession.
Yeah, huge recession, 2008. Yeah.
So my family said, okay, you're going to be the family caregiver, and we'll keep you afloat. Oh, gosh. Well, this was my new job, and I did not want to do it. I didn't know anything, and I didn't want to know anything. And I have to also say, right at the outset, that I was never a home caregiver. these people have the toughest job on the planet. They're juggling the needs of their loved one, of their kids, maybe a job, and it's exhausting, and they have no help. So I had a lot of help because Mom lived in this great place. They took care of most of her care. I was there to help keep them occupied, take them to doctor's appointments, and I wasn't there that often. And
Mhm.
every time I was there, mother's words, "walk away," were always in the back of my mind. And I was not a good caregiver. And it was difficult because, like so many people in this country, I was not seeing the person, I was only seeing the loss. I was not
Mhm.
hearing the thought, I was only hearing confusion. And so it was hard, really, really hard. And thank goodness Mom and Dad lived in this great place, which most people cannot afford. Um,
Yeah.
and that's one of my great issues, is that I do not believe that we will change that in this country until and unless we believe that people living with dementia are valuable human beings with
Yes.
lives to live.
And a lot of these facilities really need to be called out. From my
Yeah.
personal experience. I can't,
So,
but
so, sorry. So it changed. So Mom and Dad were in their late 80s, and we sort of came to a meeting of the minds. Mom wanted the best for Dad. She considered herself his caregiver because he had
Mhm.
dementia. Um, he wanted the best for her, and I wanted the best for both of them. So we sort of, okay, that's how we sort of, but I still wasn't, I still didn't want to know anything. I still didn't want to be there. I was still incredibly reluctant. Not good, not
Yes,
good.
I understand. I completely understand.
But, and that changed when Dad died at the age of 89. And they'd been together for 72 years
That's such a long time.
as
That's
best
more than
friends.
some.
Yeah.
That's more than some lifetime, than many
Oh,
lifetimes.
yeah. As best friends, and then as a married couple. They adored one another.
That's
In fact,
beautiful.
when Mom was having a really, Mom didn't acknowledge the fact that Dad was in a wheelchair. She didn't see it. When I said to her once, I said, "You know, Mom, Dad's in a wheelchair," and she said, "No, he's not." And all she saw was her wonderful, beautiful husband.
Hmm.
And so, and she was, she did this long thing for a while. She would say, "Hop up, Bob," and then he would hop up, and most likely he would fall down. And he fell 22 times in 1 year and never broke a bone.
Oh, just
Wow.
doing that for her. What? That's so the love, the love there.
Yeah. So I said to her Mom, I said, "Mom, Dad's in a wheelchair," and she said, "No, he's not." So, okay. So, Dad's Dad died at the age of 89, and my brother and sister and I were in the room with Dad and Mom was sleeping, and we thought, should we wake her up because she's not going to remember anything, and she's going to
Yeah.
have to go through this every day. But we woke her up, and there were rules in our family about death, springing from Mother's Scottish Calvinist upbringing. You were not supposed to have funerals, you were not supposed to have memorial services, and you were not allowed to cry. So we woke Mom up, and I have
That's rough.
never seen tears like that. Never from Mom, but I mean from anybody. It was just, the grief was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I got there early the next day, and she remembered, and we talked about Dad and what a wonderful man he was. And I got there early the second day, and she remembered, and we talked about Dad and what a wonderful man he was. And I got there the third morning, and she was lying in the bed crying, saying, "I just want to be with your father." And without thinking, I summoned the mother of my youth and I said, "Well, Mom, you should have thought of that before you started taking such good care of yourself." And she laughed and she said, "Well, that's life." And from then on, she sort of put it in a box. We preferred to think that she had forgotten, but she never forgot. Every day when I would get there, all the pictures of him had been rearranged. I mean, he was always there.
She was
But
always thinking about him.
so so she was also incredibly bored because she decided, okay, I'm going to start, living again. And she didn't have much to do, so I took her to this painting class that was developed for people who are living with memory loss. It was called Elderwise. Wonderful, wonderful program. And I didn't expect anything. She didn't expect anything. In fact, she thought painting was stupid. And she painted this fabulous picture. It was amazing. And when I told her how wonderful it was, she said, I didn't do that. Until the day she died, she rejected the idea that she painted anything. I'm not quite sure why. But the paintings in me, almost immediately I realized, oh, I see, she's still here. I thought she was gone, but she was still living with wit. Her paintings were so interesting. At the beginning, when she saw a flower, she would paint a flower. And then after a while, she would start to transform them. So a zucchini became a dragon. And a butternut squash became this adorable little creature with a face that looked exactly like a blue meanie from Yellow Submarine. Everything
That's
changed.
insane. The talent just there, right?
Yeah, it was her. But I think she wasn't painting what she was seeing. She was painting what she was feeling. So at any rate, this went on, and I of course then turned it into a job. I started a program called The Art of Alzheimer's, which is about communicating the fact that the creative arts give expression to all this wit and fun of people, and enhances people's lives. And this changed. This was the change when I changed from what I call a caregiver to a care partner. Mom's art to me looked like it was deteriorating. Same images, same lines, same colors, no transformations, just sort of bleh. And so I got there before the painting class, and we did everything she liked to do. We started by playing Scrabble, which we did every day till the day she died. We looked at the view, we sang, we took a power walk around the halls, and then I took her to the painting class, and the painting completely changed. It was all these warm animal images came back, the transformations came back, and that's when I realized, oh, I see. I have a role to play in this. We're partners. And from then on, we built a life together that was a better life for both of us. And it's the most rewarding, wonderful thing I've ever done in my life.
This is amazing.
What? Just I couldn't hear you.
I said that's just amazing.
I couldn't hear
No,
you.
you talk about you in our little interview. You talked about some friends that you had made along the way with that lived in the same center as your mom as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my new family.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Let's tell our listeners a little
And I
bit
think
about
that's
that.
really important because
I
Mom
do
lived
too.
in this great place, and so I was learning something every single day, learning something. The first thing I learned is that she was living with, not suffering from, dementia. And then I just assumed that she would be happy to see me because I'm her daughter. And then I realized that far more important to her were the people she lived with in assisted living, that they were her new family. And they were willing to accept me as a member of their family. So I had these 6 adopted new mothers, and it was so much fun to be with them all, that to realize that these women, and there were some men, there was a men's table, there was a women's table, but that these women were all so nice and happy and fun. At one point they had a new member of their group named Flora, and they were trying to introduce me to Flora, and they said, and I said, what's her name? And they said Flora, and I said, Lauren? They said, no, Flora, and I said, Laura? and they were very patient with me. And then I finally said Flora, and they said yes. And about 2 hours later, I was walking around the halls with Mom, and Flora emerged. She was in a wheelchair, and she was Italian, had this delicious Italian accent. And she looked at me and she said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, you're Flora," and she was so happy. And so these women and Mom together enabled me to understand that people living with dementia are wonderful human beings.
Yeah.
That all we need to do is to listen and ask questions and really listen. And there's so much to learn and so much to appreciate. When I would tell people that I would go to assisted living to relax, they would look at me like I was crazy. But it was so peaceful because there were no deadlines. All there was just an expression of love. And that's something in my Scottish Calvinist upbringing that was not abundant. That, in fact, the word was never spoken. And the ability to just rest and be with someone was scarce. And so
Yeah.
it turned into this wonderful, the next 9 years were just fabulous. So that was sort of my introduction to my new life with Mom. And one of the things I did was that I was always coming up with things to amuse them. And one of the things I started to do was to give them all shoulder massages. And when I would get there, I would ask them, they were all seated around a table, it was usually at lunchtime. And I would ask them if they wanted a shoulder massage, and they would not necessarily know what I meant, but they'd see the person next to them swooning with pleasure, and they would want one. And once, and I tell this story because it's the best compliment I ever got in my entire life. One day, after she got her massage, Gloria came up to me and she said, "Do you tuck your wings in a handkerchief when you're not here?" I mean, who wouldn't want to be around these lovely,
Right.
lovely women? And they were all equally wonderful human beings. And it changed every stereotype I ever knew or ever thought I knew about living with dementia.
I
And
bet.
so it was just fabulous.
You know, the one thing I absolutely appreciate with you coming on and talking about this is bringing a recognition that people who are in these facilities who, are living with dementia, Alzheimer's, or kind of just kind of living out the ends of their life and just trying to enjoy what's left of it. I think this will help bring a recognition to families who have family who goes into a facility, and I've seen this firsthand. They become forgotten about. They're in a facility. Oh, they're being taken care of, but they're not. Oh, they're no longer a part of that family. They're no longer getting
Right.
Christmases. They're no longer getting Thanksgiving with their family, and those are things that they miss out on. And I personally feel that if that would bring a whole lot more light to them, for them being in these facilities and getting to see them in a whole new light.
And there are really, and this is another conundrum, is that there are really good facilities that are nurturing and offer opportunities for expression, and there are the ones where they put you in a wheelchair and in a hallway. I mean,
Yes.
those are the ones
Yes.
Exactly.
those are the ones that terrify me. But one of the
Yeah,
reasons
me too.
because at the beginning of my whole journey, I was there maybe once a day. But then it was like I was there every day, and I was there a lot because I needed to be there. It was feeding me.
I was gonna say it was just as much for you as it was for them.
Well, maybe I'll take that. But it was, I mean, but then the whole place was great in that one of the things, Mother had this song that we sang all the time, and she didn't remember the words, Winter Wonderland, and so we would go dun da da dun da 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 dun da da dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da da da, and then we go walking in a winter wonderland, and then Mom would go bump bump, and she sang this so often that once Mom and I got in the elevator, and 4 of the caregivers who worked there all started singing Mother's song. and 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 because another thing that's really important is being of value, having worth, and that's something that was so abundant in so many women's, especially women's, well, men's too, lives, that is now not so much. And so one of the things that I did with the staff at lunch, I noticed they were putting all these napkins on tables, and I said, could you bring me all the napkins you've got for this table and just dump them right here? And so I put them in a big heap, and I said to Mom, would you help us fold the napkins? And she said, yes. And so she folded all the napkins really fast, and then she put them each place, and then she stopped, and she was so happy to have done something. And I said, Mom, you're
something. Yes, I remember doing that with my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Just Christmas Eve, having her come help me do all the stockings. We stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning doing the stockings together. Her helping me get all the stockings together, and the way her face lit up doing that, and she was like, "I haven't done this in so long," and it was, in all honesty, just as wonderful for me to witness and to get to be a part of that as it was to be able to give that to her, and to watch her just really fall into it and really go, and she just really enjoyed it. Or whenever we would play Yahtzee, that was our game, was Yahtzee, not Scrabble. Whenever we play Yahtzee, and she loved her Yahtzee, she loved her games, she loved her social life. So when my mother-in-law went into a facility and she was no longer able to move or walk or anything, it really, really, really hit hard for her, especially in the depression area.
Right. Well, and one of the things that I really want people to know is that facilities aren't this horrible, last resort. Facilities can be a really great place. It can be a place for companionship. It can be a place for a new family. It can be a place for activities. But it's also important for you to be a part of that.
Yes.
That if you're, so many people would say to me, well, I don't go there because she won't remember it anyway. Well, actually, she does remember it. She remembers the emotions she experienced while you were there. And then when you do visit, you're even more of a stranger, and it's even more difficult. So that being a part of that family enriches your life, enriches their lives. And so every day I would get there, we'd go through the routines of the shoulder massages, but it was just so much fun. And every time I saw Flora, we had routines. So every time I saw Flora, I would go up and I would kiss her on her forehead, and she would say, "You are my joy." And there was another woman who had a puppet she named Gus. And so every time I saw her with Gus, I would go, "Hi, Gus, arf." And she said, "Oh, he's so happy to hear you." And it's just, again, it's meeting them where they are rather than where you want them to be.
Exactly. And that right there is amazing.
And it can be so much fun. Once this wonderful thing happened where during the massages, once the caregiver said, the men's table wants you to come over. So I went over to the men's table and I started giving this wonderful man named Harry, whom I didn't know that well, a shoulder massage. And slowly these little chirps started to erupt. He started to go, and slowly this melody emerged, and he began to sing. And I didn't want to stop because I didn't want to stop the song. But then after a while, his food was getting cold. But when I finished, the entire dining room erupted into applause. It was just these moments of community, things that surprised you.
Yeah.
And so it's our preconceptions about what we think they're like, what their lives are like. A lot of them, I think, are what not what's happening, but we're afraid of how we would feel if we were there. So we're not listening to them. We're just afraid of, like, oh, I don't want to be there. One of my sisters said, I'm never going to get Alzheimer's. I said, well, great, congratulations. It's just fabulous. And it's just, every day is an opportunity to engage with people on their level, in recognition that these are wonderful human beings. And one of the things I realized, the whole concept of enduring personhood, that there are certain things that we as human beings share, and we will always share, no matter whether we have dementia or whether we don't, till the day we die. The need for friendship, and the need to be of value, and the need to laugh, and the need to love and to be loved. These never leave us. We're human beings, and we're experiencing the same reality differently, but the same reality. They're not in some odd little place. It's if one can do it. I used to tell people that they should adopt a mother in assisted living, because it would be really fun, as long as they kept going. You can't just go once. But
yeah,
it
we
can
agree.
Yeah, it can be the most, because what I learned, what it brought me, is that I became a better human being. I learned how to live. That Mom, in all my years there, she gave me this blueprint for how to live. And then I realized that everything that enables people living with dementia to live with joy and to thrive works the same for everyone. Everyone. And I was never used growing up to listening and to asking questions, and to really listen and really then asking questions that, with respect. And that when you do that, everything changes. I used to say that after Mom, my life with Mom, I emerged from fists clenched to hands open. That I learned how to be a human being. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, there's something I was talking to a friend of mine, and when she was my grandma, she was my step grandma, but she was my grandma. When she was in assisted living, it always felt so sad because you didn't see very many people visiting. And one thing that always popped in my mind is, why don't they always open up the assisted living for like kids to visit when it comes to around like Halloween? You know, the trick or treating. You know, either there's make them feel part of the community. I think that's the most important, is letting them feel part of the community and included. And that opens up that love, that joy of, of being
Not
able
just
to be,
rotting away.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's true. The fact that they're part of a community and that you get to be a part of that community,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Exactly.
it's just wonderful.
Like she was saying, like her helping out, stuffing stockings, for before Christmas and everything. How she felt included, how that made her day, and how she hasn't done that in so long. These people, a lot of them are grandparents who don't get to be grandparents
Right.
because they're
Right.
in these assisted livings, and that I
And
can't
nobody wants
imagine
to go
how
visit in the
hard that
assisted
is.
living.
And that's why visits from kids is so, you just see
So
the joy in
important.
their faces. And
Yes.
visits from animals where they get to interact, it's just
Yeah.
giving people the opportunity to be human.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You know, a lot of they I had a friend that she works in the assisted living, and she goes, you know, it's really hard. They're told to be very detached because they're there to work, and some people pass on, and you know, they don't want them crying and or anything like that. And she goes, it's really hard to try to stay detached because you see these people not being visited by families, or they're just sitting there watching their westerns or just reading a book, but they're you can see how unhappy they are. Or when they started going into these their episodes, you know, they get sporadic and they want to, you know, leave, and it comes into a hostile situation. Instead of going, it's okay, you know, and then call a family member to come and, you know, talk to them, to see them, to visit them, to make them feel a little bit at home.
Yeah, we talk. There's so much talk about how people get hostile, people get angry. Well, no wonder they're getting angry.
They're by
They're alone.
themselves.
They need friendship. They need companionship.
Yeah.
Um,
That the
Yes,
anger isn't necessarily from the dementia. I think we have a little bit of a confusion on that. Is that
yeah,
we assume that it's from, but it's from what they're feeling inside, and they're left alone, and they're literally in a strange place. They're not in their home, and that was one of the biggest things with my mother-in-law was she missed home so much.
yeah,
She missed her own home, you know, living with somebody else, living under somebody else's rules. Like, because I didn't understand it either. Like, when I stepped into the caregiving role, I didn't understand it. I didn't want it, but I took it on. And through the years, I learned that, more compassion was the way to go about things. I wasn't always as compassionate and as thoughtful or as understanding as I should have been,
right.
and I really do regret those times, and I think about them a lot. But they were learning experiences for
Yeah, you
me.
learn.
You
You
there,
learn and you
and
pass it forward.
yeah,
exactly.
and our thing was is we would go in and I would go do her nails because she had her nails were the most important thing for her. She loved her nails being done. So then it turned into me doing her and her roommate's nails. And then it turned into me doing some other lady's nails,
Oh, nice.
but I would always come in and I would always bring I was always buying a different color of nail polish or whatever, and even just going, even do you want, we'll just redo them, and I'll file them all and everything. And it just kind of turned into like I would give little hand massages and stuff like that. And it really turned into I understand where you're talking about where you see the other people in the facility and you see how they really really start to bond together
Yeah,
when they're given those opportunities, and when they're shown when they're met where they're at instead of where we want them to be.
right, right. Yeah, it's if people only knew how incredibly rewarding it could be to be a part of that community, and also the impact it has on you as a human being to be a better person. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, one of the things I wasn't. It took me a long time to ask mom questions. That there was this one question she asked over and over and over and over and over and over again, which is, what did I think Seattle was going to be like in 25 years? Sometimes it was 250 years, but it was. And I, at the first, when she started doing it, I would just make up these things and change the subject because I found it boring. And then
Mhm.
one day I thought, well, if she keeps asking, it must mean something to her. So I asked her what she thought Seattle was going to be like in 25 years. And she was so funny. She started spinning out all sorts of things. She said, well, maybe women will start wearing skirts again. And then she talked about, she said, it's getting so crowded there won't be any room. Maybe we'll all fly. And just came up with all sorts. And she said, maybe we'll be underwater. And then we envisioned the water lapping at the shores of Seattle. And just, which is already there, of course. But it was just, it can be fun. It can be fun. And
Mhm.
and it's one of the things we did that I always love this is that, and it's just sort of a spur of the moment thing. If you're there with them often enough, then you just start to adapt with them. And once every day we had this routine. When I would leave, she would give me a hug, and then she'd say, "Don't work too hard," and then I would leave. And one day she came with me to the elevator with every expectation of leaving with me. And she looked at me with this trust, like I wasn't just going to abandon her. And her two best friends, I couldn't find them, and there were no activities. So instead we started to sing. So we started to sing "Good Night Ladies," and we walked around and around the hallways singing "Good Night Ladies." And every time we got to a nurse's station, they'd join in. And every time we would meet somebody in the hallways, one of the residents, they'd join in. And after going around the hallways 2 or 3 times, we finally got back to Mom's little apartment. And then she gave me a hug and said, "Don't work too hard." And then I left. And it was such a fun and also a realization thing, that looking at it from her point of view. Everything I looked at from Mom's point of view.
Yeah.
Mom was great. Mom was great. And we played Scrabble every day. And what was fun is that even when she couldn't make words anymore, we would just add up the scores of the tiles, because Mother was very competitive, and so she wanted to know if her tiles had more points than my tiles did. And so it was just, every single day was fun.
I think what really hit me is that you get to see them in a different light. You get to see them not as your caregiver, your mom, not as the coworker or who your brother or whatever. You get to see them in a different light.
Right.
Like for me, that's how it was. It was I got to see her in a completely different way, and it was really amazing to get to know her and the few friends that she was able to make, because she was kind of bedridden, so she wasn't able to join in the activities like most, so the few friends that she did make that would come up and visit her and stuff,
Nice.
it was very, very nice. It was very rewarding also to get to know them and get to know their stories and get to know, a little bit more about them, and just the interactions. For me, it was always just, you walk out feeling wonderful. Like,
One of the things I wish they do at these facilities is I wish they would tell you more about every person who's in the facility, so that when you have a conversation with someone, then you know what might be of interest to them.
Or what may be a trigger for them.
Well, I was always finding out something interesting, that like one of Mom's best friends, Phyllis, who never spoke. She would coo, but she would never speak. But she'd been a music teacher. And so she really related to music. And the only time I ever heard her voice is that there was a drum circle, and she started pounding the back of my back in time to the music, and all of a sudden I heard her sing the song, which I'd never heard her voice before. And it was just, and then I found out, oh, she'd been a music teacher. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just gives you more opportunities to interact and connect with people. So there's lots we can do. What the most important thing is that if people are going to, and ultimately live in facilities, because at a certain point you will, because it's difficult as your condition advances, you're going to need that kind of support.
Yeah.
And that we make it available to people, that it is possible for people to afford these places, good places.
Yeah, they're so expensive. They are so beyond expensive.
Well, Mom was paying at the end, and she died in 2016, she was at level 5 in terms of the assistant that she needed. She was paying $15,000 a month.
A month. Monthly, yeah. Yeah, people don't have that kind of income.
No one does.
Nobody really does. Nobody has that kind of income. And then, even, so we paid a lot out of our pockets, but even family members, multiple family members can't come up with that kind of
No.
cash on a monthly basis for that kind of care, and then they're unable to do the care themselves,
Right.
Mhm.
because they have to work, because they have families, because they, taking care of people when you're in a level 5, that's high care, and doing
Yeah.
that at home is very, very difficult.
So it's
I
I was
agree with
talking to
you.
somebody once, and she'd been reading my book, which is, one
Yeah,
of the
we wanted
reviews
to get
that,
into that also. I wanted to get into your book also.
but the review was talking about hope, and she said, and joy, living with joy and living with hope, and she said to me, I have, because she was a caregiver for her husband. It was hard,
Hmm.
and this was a while ago, and she said, I can totally understand the concept of hope. It's harder for me to relate to the concept of joy, because we didn't experience a lot of that. But that's another thing that I think it's so important when I say to share joy, enable enable you to see that person that you think is quote gone having a good time, enjoying themselves, because then you can see what you, if you're only seeing loss and you're only seeing sorrow, that's all you're ever going to see. But if you see people enjoying themselves, you see that humor that you thought was gone, and then you go, oh, I see, they're still here.
Yes, yes, exactly. They're still here.
So
Um,
it was just this wonderful, wonderful, and I am a so much nicer person now than I used to be.
it does do
I,
that to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
I,
I wasn't raised to listen to people. I was raised to
Hmm.
win.
Yeah, and what a difference that makes being around people when they're older, and it's not so much ambition, because the end of life you have different
Yeah,
goals.
yeah.
It's completely different people. Just thought you were gonna say something.
well, I think I know from my experience, it always felt like a chore when it came to grandma. It always felt like it was very frustrating because here I was having to put aside my life to go take care of her instead of seeing it as she was a part of my life. Instead of seeing that if I just spent the hour with her and getting to, hear her stories and getting to play, I love playing Yahtzee with her, getting to spend that time with her, seeing her laugh and smile, that joy in her eyes, that it did something to me. And one thing I recognize with people who are facing, family members going through dementia, Alzheimer's, these kinds of situations, is that they get frustrated with them because they're not understanding what's going on in their head of the person with the dementia or the Alzheimer's. They're not quite understanding what's going on. The forgetfulness. I think one thing is they have a fear of forgetting, their wife or their kids or their grandkids. That's something that we're not seeing as, on that outside view. So they may not want to leave the house at a certain time because they fear that if they leave the house, they're never going to remember them again.
Right.
And, you know, the forgetfulness, people get very frustrated with it. And I think that if we just take a step back and understand them a little bit better, we would have more patience for them and learn to love them through it and help them get back to a situation where it's not so frustrating.
Yeah, seeing the world through their eyes.
Hmm.
Exactly.
It's possible. Most people don't want to. One of the things I always say, it's not about you. It's about them. It's not about you. How about you feel? How about you would feel if you had dementia? Because you don't. Um,
Exactly.
Exactly. How you have no idea how you would feel because you
yeah.
don't.
But and once you, I mean, I had this friend who came up with this wonderful line. She said, people who live with dementia have lives to live and gifts to give.
I love that.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I
Yeah,
love
isn't that
that.
nice?
I
Yeah.
think we got to put that on our one on our little notes there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. And it's true that these are, and if
They're
you are
still human
patient and
beings.
listen, then you are privileged to be able to share that life, and then you learn.
Yeah.
Um, Mom did this wonderful thing once. We were playing Scrabble, and she was probably 94, and she was having a hard time coming up with words, and all of a sudden she stopped, and she looked at me, and she said, "You know, sometimes your brain just gets in the way." And then she made Jewel on the triple.
Yeah, I remember you telling us on
Yeah,
that on the
yeah.
in the interview.
Yeah, and it was like, just relax, just calm down. Everything's, they're here. They're here.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Yeah, it was such a privilege to know Mom and all of her her companions, all my new moms. And when Mom died, it was really interesting because I went back to assisted living just to relax, just to be with them. And Ruby, who was from Atlanta, and Evelyn, who was 104, and they were talking
Wow.
about Mom, and Ruby said, and she held up this little red plastic flower, and she said, "I think about Jean every time I see this. You want to know why?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "'Cause she tried to eat it." It was like, oh, I'm home. I can just relax and have fun and remember Mom.
Oh my gosh.
It's it's and it's funny because when Evelyn, who became my second mother, really became my second mother, we were really close, and because she didn't have dementia, but she was 104, so she needed
Yeah.
care. And at one point, in she was starting to feel badly, and she said, "You know, I think it's time for me to die." And everybody said, "Oh, Evelyn, we're going to miss you. You're such a wonderful person." And I made cookies every Christmas, like ridiculous number of cookies, using a ridiculous amount of butter. And so instead of saying, "We're going to miss you," to Evelyn, I said, "Evelyn, I'm going to make you some cookies." And I came back with this platter of these incredibly beautiful cookies, difficult cookies, and she revived. And from then on, the women of assisted living decided that my cookies were the secret to a long life. And when I would arrive, they'd say, "Get in the kitchen and start cooking," and always expect me to bring cookies to them. They were so funny. So everything was just happy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, here's a really simple thing you can do. You can find out what somebody really loves, because Ruby loved mangoes. Well, they don't serve mangoes in assisted living. So I would find mangoes at the store that were almost ripe, and I would bring them to her and say, "Okay, when it's ripe, you tell me, and I will carve it up for you so you can eat it." And I would do that, and it was so easy to buy her some mangoes, and she was so appreciative of it. It's so
Mm-hmm.
easy to be nice.
Yeah, we used to stop and get Diet Coke for the roommate for my mother-in-law's roommate. Just for every week. She was like, can you stop and get Diet Coke and then some candy or whatever. So yeah, okay, bring her some
Yeah.
Diet Coke, and some candy or whatever.
Yeah, it's
But
easy to be nice.
so you have a book. Can you tell
Oh,
us
yeah.
our listeners a little bit about your book?
The book is called Don't Walk Away, which is a perfect title because that's walk away
Yes.
is what I was thinking. So it's called Don't Walk Away, A Care Partner's Journey. And it's about, and because all the time I spent with Mom, every single day I wrote down every single thing we said and did.
Oh wow.
I have a whole record of everything we did, these short little vignettes with Mom. And then, so it's a memoir of me with Mom, but it's also every little story about me and Mom is illustrated by one of her paintings.
Oh wow.
So it's art and memoir, and what's interesting about the book is because I got to the point a long time ago where I didn't want to read books about dementia because they were so depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an uncharacteristically happy book where it was all these stories about me and Mom, and every story I learned something. The art's fabulous, and it's a short read, but it's fun. It's fun.
And where can we
And
find that?
well, actually, it's at Barnes and Noble. It's at Amazon. But the easiest way to get the link is to go to the website for the book, which is don'twalkaway.net. And on the front page, you've got links to both places. You can just click on them, and it takes you right.
Fantastic. We'll
And
make sure that we add those into our footnotes.
Yeah, and the book is the art is. I named every painting for what she was painting because you wouldn't know, because she transformed everything. You would not know that the picture on the cover of the book is two pink primroses because it's a little creature marching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean they were all, and the only painting I actually named is the orange meanie, because it's the one with the face that looks just like a blue meanie. But it says she was painting a butternut squash, and she painted this jaunty little pink creature with that face, and it's over my kitchen sink. Every time I do the dishes, I'm looking at the orange meanie. It's just wonderful. So all of these paintings are really wonderful, and only 3 of them express negative or sad emotions, but the rest of them were just sort of fun. And so the book is fabulous, but if you do go to Amazon, you have to put in a care partner's journey, because it turns out there are lots and lots of books named Don't Walk Away. Who knew? So it's easy.
So
If you
put in
don'twalkaway.net, and you'll learn more about the book, and you'll learn more about podcasts that we've done, and there's stuff about Mom, and you just click on those links to take you there, and it's just so much. It's fun, very, very. And the reason I wrote the book is that, given how sad and negative people feel about dementia and how they don't want to think about it, I wanted people to take a walk with me and Mom. Just an invitation. Take a walk with me and Mom and experience it for yourself. I'm not going to tell you anything. You're going to experience it for yourself, how joyous this can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So the book is fabulous. I love the book. And Mother would be amused. She would still deny painting anything, but she would be amused, and so there's that. And so if anybody wants to read the book on Amazon, I highly recommend, if they like it, to do a review, because that's how Amazon judges everything.
Absolutely.
But anyway.
Marilyn, we greatly appreciate you sharing your experience and your book with us here on Looking Through the Glass. We absolutely love talking with you. It's been a very great pleasure, and this is the first time that I've got to talk about my experiences with my mother-in-law. So I thank you for that too, as well, because I do miss her, and even the times when I hated it, I look back and I realize how much I did. You learn a lot. You do learn a lot.
You learn about it. We're all in this together.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. This was great.
Yes, we appreciate you. Okay, so for those of you that have a story that want to share, you can reach out to us at our email 12lookingthrough, THRU34theglass@gmail.com. You can reach out to our Facebook, our TikTok, our what are the other ones we have? YouTube.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. We've got them. Expanding.
And they will be in the show notes, not footnotes. No.
Show notes. I said footnotes. That's what you were laughing about. I said footnotes.
But no, we were writing an essay over here. But we will have them in the show notes for everybody who is driving. Please do not text and drive. And thank you for listening, for Looking Through the Glass.
Thank you, guys.